Hi, so I've been asked by a Rightbooth user about a very specific use case where people are at an event with their mobile phones wandering around taking photos. What they would like is for all photos to arrive at a computer where Rightbooth is running. Rightbooth will then take each photo in turn, add a logo to it, and then automatically pass that photo on to a Rightbooth sharing station event where the guests can then browse and print and email photos. So it is possible for Rightbooth to do that. And in this video, I'm going to just explain the watch folder event that is required. So in this process here, we're using DropBox. Now with DropBox, you can obviously have it on your mobile phones and you can have the account running on the computer. So as long as there's connections to the internet, it's possible for mobile phones to take photos, upload them to a Dropbox folder, and then that Dropbox folder will be synchronized onto the computer. And then Rightbooth can take over. It can monitor the Dropbox folder on the computer, and each time a photo arrives in that folder, it will automatically add the logo and then pass it on to a sharing station event. So I'm not going to be explaining how to use Dropbox. There are plenty of videos out there that do that, but I will explain how this watch folder event works. Okay, so the first thing I will do is show you how the watch folder event works in this situation. So I'll just have a quick look in the editor here. I'll take you through how I've set all this up later, but at the moment I've just got a start screen. I've included the show photo screen so you can see what happens. I mean, this screen is not necessary, but it's just for the purposes of this demonstration. And also the thank you screen is not necessary either. But again, I'm just including these so you can get a feel for how it works. Essentially, when I run this watch folder event, it will all happen automatically, so there's no need to show anybody anything. So I'm going to run the event, play. Now, because it's a watch folder event, Rightbooth is just sat here waiting for files to appear in the watch folder. Now I've got some folders on my computer that I'm going to use to show you what happens. So Rightbooth is set up to monitor this Dropbox folder. And as you can see, I've installed the Dropbox client on my computer and I've made the photos folder shareable. So anyone that's got access to the Dropbox Photos account on any mobile device can send photos to this folder on this computer, as long as it's connected to the internet, of course. So I'm going to simulate that by dragging some photos off my computer and putting them into this Dropbox folder. So this is my pictures library here, so I'm just going to drag photos across. So here we've just got ordinary photos into the photos folder. Rightbooth should then take over and it will add a logo to each one, and then it copy them to this sharing station folder for the sharing station event to take over. So I'll just show you the process. So let's just take this one. I'm going to right click copy, and then over here I'm going to right click and paste, and watch what happens. So as you can see, Rightbooth quickly added a logo to that photo. It's now returned back to the start screen again, waiting for the next one. Let's just have a look at this photo. As you can see, it's just added a logo in the bottom left corner. So let's take some more. Let's take this one and this one. I'll drag them both across. Well, sorry, I'll copy and paste them across. Copy, right click, paste them into the Dropbox folder, and watch what happens. Rightbooth processes the first one, puts it into the sharing station folder. It then finds the second one, adds the logo, and puts that into the sharing station folder. And as you can see, it's removing them from the Dropbox Photos folder and placing the modified photos into the sharing station folder. Now, as I say, all that can happen totally automatically. You don't need to see these screens. So that's the process. Let's explain how to set up a watch folder event to do what I've just shown you. So I'm going to explain how to create a watch folder event. So in RightBooth, click the Create button. Now, starting with RightBooth version 7.14.6, there is this option here to create a watch folder event. So select that, click Next. You can put a title for the start screen, but the start screen is not particularly important with a watch folder event, so it's defaulting to watch folder event here. Let's click Next. You're now asked to choose a watch folder. So in other words, a folder in which you want RightBooth to look for videos and photos. And as I say, we've got the DropBox client installed, and I'm going to choose this photos folder to watch. And that's in C users nrp su, which is my login name, Dropbox/photos. Obviously you can choose any folder you like. I'm just choosing this photos folder that I've created. So I'll select that folder. And then just follow the rest of the wizard in designing your event. So choosing an image for the background, which is not important really, because as I say, this is probably not going to be visible when you run the watch folder event. So I'll just quickly go through all this, choose the language and continue. RightBooth will now create the event and we'll take a look at it shortly. So this is my watch folder event. Let's have a look in the designer. As you can see, I've set it up as a watch folder event. I've set it to look for single photos one at a time. So each time a photo arrives, it will start processing that photo. I've also set the watch folder to be my local Dropbox photos folder. So that's just done by browsing to the Dropbox folder that you need to watch. If we go into the event structure, you can see that I've got a start screen. You have to have that. If I try and turn that off, it won't let me. So watch folder events must have a start screen. But from then on, there are certain things that a watch folder event can do to each photo. So for instance, you could add green screen removal. You could add overlays, and this is, I'll come back to this in a minute. You could get it to automatically add photo AI effects and filters or enhancements. So in my example here, all I want to do is to add an overlay logo. So I've ticked this box here. I've chosen my logo image, which is this one here, and I've chosen to add it at the bottom left of each photo at a size of 25%, which means it's 25% of the height of the photo. Now, as I said, I've also got it to show the photos and also include a thank you screen. But again, you don't need these. I can turn these off actually. So I'll turn that one off and I'll turn that one off. Now, when I play the event, all that will happen is that RightBooth will just process these photos and will not show any screens at all. So in that respect, you could also choose to play it minimized, which I will do. So it's play minimized. If I play the event now, you won't actually see the event running. It will be down on the taskbar. And that's fine because it literally does not need any user interface when it's playing. The last thing I need to do is to add a file copy action so that when the photos have been completed, in other words, when the logo has been added, RightBooth will then copy the completed photo into this sharing station folder for the sharing station event to take over. As you can see, I've ticked photos here. So let me just play it one more time with these modifications. So when I run it this time, you won't see it running. It's actually down here. So it's sat there waiting. So what I'll do is I'm just going to take these photos out of here and I'm going to copy them across again into the DropBox folder. So let's see what happens. So copy, paste. And as you can see, Right Booth behind the scenes is taking each one in turn, adding the logo and putting them in the sharing station folder. Now there's one final thing to mention here, and that is the watch folder event will always remove the files from the watch folder as it's processing them. Now you might find that you don't want that to happen, because with a Dropbox folder then the files will disappear completely off Dropbox. So currently that's how a watch folder event is designed. Now if you want to keep the photos in the Dropbox folder and also have Right Booth process them, there is another app that's supplied with Right Booth called Watch Copy. I'll just show you where that is. If you go into the Right Booth folder in Program Files x86, down here you will see there is a Watch Copy app. It's a utility app. Let me just double click it. Now I'm running this Watch Copy app, and what I've done is I've set the source folder to be the Dropbox Photos folder, and I'm also setting the destination folder to be another temporary folder that I've created on my machine, C:temp. Now if I tick this box here, watch and copy files, what will happen is that this utility app will monitor the Dropbox Photos folder, and each time a file appears in there it will copy that file into this folder. So I can have this running, minimize it and just leave it there so it's constantly watching the Photos folder and will be copying files from that to the temp folder. So the question then is, how does this watch folder event work? Well, what you have to do is come back out of here into the designer and change this folder to be C:temp. So now we're hopping the files from the Dropbox Photos folder into the temp folder, and then the Right Booth watch folder event will take the files out of the temp folder. So let me just play this again. And I'm going to remove these again just for the example. So now if I take these files, paste them into here, what you will find is that Right Booth will process the files and add the logos, but it will leave the photos in the Dropbox folder. So if that's what you want to achieve, then you can use the Watch Copy utility. Now, returning to the original question, part of the question was about the sharing station, how you can run a sharing station at the same time as the watch folder event. So with the sharing station, we want to actually allow the users access to these modified photos. Well, that's where you have to run a second instance of Right Booth. So let's do that. So this is instance 1 of Right Booth. If you want to run another instance, find it in the Start menu here and run it again, basically. So you'll get this message which pops up. You say, yes, I want to run another instance. So the second instance of Right Booth will start running, and it's designated by a 2 here. So we've got 2 copies running at the same time. So this is your watch folder event. Now in this second instance you can create a sharing station event. Now I'm not going to explain how to do that in this video. There are lots of other training videos that explain sharing stations. But here I've created a sharing station, and it's actually looking at the sharing station folder that the watch folder event is copying the files to, the completed photos. And if I just run this here, you can see that 3 photos I used in the example are showing in this slideshow. And if I click the mouse, you go onto the media browser and you can see that you can pick the files for viewing and for printing and emailing. So let me just exit out of here. So in essence, what you have to do then is run both of these events. You play the first one and that will minimize, and that's the watch folder event for modifying the photos from Dropbox. You run the second one and play that, and that's the interactive one that your guests can use to browse the modified photos. Okay, I hope all that helps, and thanks for watching.